Shalom, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight on Kingdom Counsel. We're going to dive into some amazing topics tonight. First, we're going to discuss the slap heard around the world. Tonight's theme is the attack on womanhood, the gentrification of the original woman. So everyone wants to know, Will Smith versus Chris Rock. What's going on? What was that about? Hollywood is in an uproar. The Oscars went crazy. Everyone's claiming they're traumatized and terrorized and just so upset about what happened. So we're going to figure out, was it really worth being that bothered? In 2016, actually, Chris Rock was making fun of Jada then as well. I don't know why he keeps picking on this woman, but Will was not having it. And in 2018, she actually came forward about her alopecia diagnosis and the struggles that she's been having with that. So was Will's response uncalled for, or was he protecting her womanhood? Was he justified in running on stage and slapping the mess out of Chris Rock, or did he take it too far and should have handled it a different way? So I'd love to welcome my co-host Delia to the stage. I want to get your take on this. Was his response uncalled for?
Yeah, thanks for welcoming me on. And I would say that I can understand when enough is enough for someone. Like him and his wife have really been put through the ringer in social media on the public stage for years now. And he probably was just like, this is the straw that broke the camel's back. And I don't care who sees it or where I am. Somebody's going to pay for that. And that's the closest place he could get to slap. And that's what he did. Is that like the best thing to do in that moment? Probably not. But I mean, I can't really knock somebody for constantly being, under attack for years. And he finally got a chance to do something about it on a major stage. And he didn't like seeing his wife embarrassed and upset. So he did something about it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, it definitely shook the room. And that's all anybody has been talking about on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. There's so many memes running around. But I mean, we can say that this was an attack on womanhood. Chris Rock did take it too far, making fun of his wife. No one should be making fun of anybody's wife. But did a slap really protect her in that sense? Like, is that going to stop him from doing it again? I mean, it seems like he's getting praise and accolades for being the victim of this. I mean, his ticket prices shot up after this night to like over $300 for his comedy show. So, I mean, I guess it worked out more so in his favor than Will's. So I don't know. But moving past that, we're going to touch on Atlanta's season premiere. I don't know if anyone watches Atlanta or if they're a fan of Childish Gambino, but the show is very good. And it definitely puts a lot of perspective into the plight that we deal with as Israelites in this world. So Delia, tell us a little more about the season premiere.
Yes. So for those who really like Atlanta, I know this was a long wait. It's been 4 years that the show's been on hiatus, but they came back with fire. They did not disappoint. And this story, the first episode is entitled 3 Slaps. It's about a young Black boy who was forcibly put into the foster care system, taken away from, his mother. His Black mother actually gave him over to Child Protective Services. And he ended up going into the care of 2 white women, a lesbian couple who had adopted 3 other Black children. And immediately this story gets off to a very horrifying start. He's forced into a world where he is isolated from his own community. He's surrounded by white women. The way they eat is not like how he eats. They're microwaving chicken and giving him unseasoned vegetables, things that he doesn't even know what they are, and calling him another name. I mean, his name was LaQuavius, and they're like, well, I didn't know how to spell your name or say it, so we're just going to call you Larry, which is not his name. They have these children out here, working in the fields, picking up, planting things and going out to these farmers markets, and they're surrounded by a bunch of white people. And it kind of felt like they were held hostage. The environment felt very cold and unwelcoming for Black people. And the crazy part is this is not a made up story. This story actually is based upon the Hart family. So these were 2 women, and you can see the side by side here. So the picture on the left is the character in Atlanta, and then the child on the right is who he's actually portraying in real life, Devontae Hart. And these 2 women, these lesbian women, the Harts, they adopted 2 different sets of families. So 3 kids from one mother and 3 kids from another. And they had actually been in the news several times, like going around the country, participating in festivals and going to farmers markets. So there's lots of media coverage of these families, and people thought that they were very happy, that the children were well taken care of. But when after these, I'll cut to the chase, these children all died in a horrible accident where the mothers drove off of a cliff in California, plummeted 100 feet down into the ocean. And all the children and the mothers were pronounced dead. One child, Devontae Hart, I think his body has never been found, but unfortunately they didn't survive. And the question really is, why are white women raising our children? And is Child Protective Services engaged in anti-Semitism? How did this happen? When they dug into the family after they discovered that the children had died, there were accounts that these parents were abusing their children. This was actually documented in several Child Protective Services throughout different states. And once they were getting found out, they were traveling to another state to live. And so that's kind of how they kind of drug this out before it came to a head where this murder-suicide thing happened. But why were these things being brushed under the rug? Why weren't these children protected? And I just want to read something really quickly from the National Conference of State Legislatures. So it says that families of color are disproportionately represented in the child welfare system and are more likely to experience negative outcomes compared to white families. For instance, children of color are more likely to experience multiple placements, less likely to be reunited with their birth families, more likely to experience group care, less likely to establish a permanent placement, and more likely to experience poor social, behavioral, and educational outcomes. And this episode of Atlanta definitely touched on how they were kind of hidden away from their families. They couldn't get help, and in real life, the Hart children, their families were trying to get them back into their care, and that never happened, unfortunately. So just you guys let me know what do you think about this story?
This is very tragic. And yes, the Child Protective Services are anti-Semitic. The stats that you've just read prove that. No one has to try and piece things together to make that claim. It's very evident. And it's sad that this is a true story, but I'm grateful that this was aired on Atlanta to bring awareness and coverage to this issue that our children are faced with every day. I mean, they're literally being separated from their families for life, most of them, with no hope of being reunited with them. And for what? To go be raised in a white household with people who don't love them, people who don't understand them, or people who hate them. So definitely very tragic. I'm happy that we discussed this, and I'm happy that Atlanta brought this to light as well. So moving forward from this, we're going to move into world news. What do you have for us, Delia, regarding world news? What's going on in the world?
Yeah, so we have a couple of stories about transgender women being stuck at the border of Ukraine, and they're not able to leave. And the reason is because martial law has been enacted where all men ages 18 to 60 have to stay behind and fight. And some of these transgender women actually went through the process to be have their identification actually say that they're female. Others don't have that, and if you certainly can't transition across the border if your identity doesn't match who you are. But even for those that do, the border agents are saying they're doing all these evaluations, physical exams, and all these things, and saying, no, you're a man, you need to stay back in Ukraine and fight. We've lost over 3 million people already, and you're going to stay here. And you can see that this is one of the transgender people, Judas, and it says, I will not be held prisoner. And these stories are actually being covered very sympathetically across major platforms like The Guardian and Rolling Stone and Vice. But when it comes to our people that are actually being held prisoner in the Ukraine, who are a lot of times they're students, college students that are abroad going to school there, but they're saying you cannot leave. And this is not a law for them to hold them hostage here and trying to make them fight. But these stories aren't being covered sympathetically. A lot of times it says allegedly being held behind, whereas with these transgender stories, it's like, you know, they're very sympathetic about it, and it's like we need to band together and help them. But again, this is anti-Semitism at its finest. Our stories are always lessened. They're always treated like maybe that's true, I don't know, but it's never urgent, and it's never really covered largely on major platforms. But for some reason, this transgender issue is more important than holding an entire group of people hostage in a country that's not even their own.
Yeah, that's very disheartening too, the point you raised, that our stories are hardly being covered. I mean, we saw on, I think, a couple episodes ago in the 400-year ongoing Black Holocaust, how those students and our people were being stuck there. They couldn't leave. They were keeping them off the trains, but yet we're supposed to protect men pretending to be women so they don't have to fight in a war. Oh, okay. Anti-Semitism. Tag that. If I had a button, I would like smash the button. Anti-Semitism. Because how is this even allowed?
Mm-hmm. And these are citizens. These transgender people are citizens of the Ukraine, but like the students abroad, the Black students abroad, they're supposed to be held back to fight. Why?
Okay, so yeah, now I have to edit my last statement. Citizens of your country, men pretending to be women of your country, are mad they have to stay, while foreigners visiting your country are being asked to stay to fight.
Yep.
Okay. Well, the DNA does not lie, so we can just move past this. Moving forward into the fight against anti-Semitism, I'm very happy to bring on our special guest, Elder Shemaiah, from the United Nation of Yisrael, to speak on what's going on in Mason, Tennessee.
Shalom, family. And anti-Semitism continues to be something that affects our people abroad. You know, we have to come to realize that it's anti-Semitism over everything when it comes to our people. So let us let that word be a buzzword upon us. So as I get into the story about Mason, Tennessee, that's a particular city in Tennessee where the comptroller of Mason, Tennessee, has sought to take over that city of Mason, all on alleged misallegations of appropriation of funding because of the current administration that are predominantly our people. And when I say our people, I say Israelites. And they're running the city. But what has happened is Ford Motor Company, which is a major corporation in the United States, has decided to build a plant to build their new electrical vehicles. They call it their Blue Bubble City. And so that is in the steps of generating a lot of revenue. So the state wants to seize control of that revenue. They don't want Mason to benefit from those funds that will come directly from Ford Motor Company. So therefore, they have pushed to make these allegations as though the mismanagement of finances started with our people that are in the current administration. But the actual mismanagement actually occurred prior to that, when there were an all-white panel of ministers inside of Mason, Tennessee, that govern that process, that are the ones that are guilty of mismanagement. But because our people are left holding the bag, then they are made to be the ones responsible. And the comptroller has made that his premises of allegations to take control of Mason City. Again, this is another slap in the face to our people. This is anti-Semitism by far. It mimics the anti-Semitism that occurred in Detroit, Michigan, about 5 or 6 years ago, when they actually took the Detroit Water and Sewage Department from the control of the city of Detroit, which they were looking to do for many years. But when they saw the avenue to do so, they did that very same thing. They don't want to see our people succeed in the lines of success when it pertains to management of government, whether it be municipal, state, or federal. Although we have been put in position, we are not accepted. So those of our people realize that anti-Semitism is very real.
It is very real. And it's unfortunate that they're trying to take over the city and blame us for mismanagement of funds when they're the reason why the funds were mismanaged. And we're actually trying to build it back to where it's supposed to be in preparation for this major Ford, what Ford is doing with the blue bubble electric vehicles. I mean, like we've been mentioning this whole time, more anti-Semitism. It doesn't even matter what we discuss or what topic is at hand. It all goes back to anti-Semitism. This is a very real war that we're at. We can't pretend that it's anything other than that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we need to wake up as a people and see anti-Semitism for what it is. We need to focus on that versus the paradigm and definitions of things that we have been given and know who we are as a people and accept that. So we encourage our people to go and find out what's happening in Mason, Tennessee. Join the movement. If you have the ability, get in contact with the legislation in the state of Tennessee and Mason City and show your support. We definitely are, as the United Nations of Israel, we will speak and issue a formal letter of support for our people. We don't support, the control of any government other than the government control of the Most High, but we support our people.
Yes. And that's a perfect way to move forward on our next topic regarding business and finance. Debt notes versus love notes. What's going on with the petrodollar, and what does that mean for us as we move into a new realm of currency with our love notes?
Absolutely. So that is a very deep subject matter. When we talk about the petrodollar, we have to understand the very definition of the word, the pronunciation, petrodollar. Petro is talking about oil or what makes gas, and the dollar is the mechanism of how gas and oil is traded. So when we start to look at the petrodollar, that is the means that is used worldwide for the exchange of oil. It doesn't matter what country you're in or where you're at in the world hemisphere, oil is traded in US dollars. That's what holds up the US economy. If it is ever changed to another currency, life as we know it in the United States will change drastically because the US dollar, which is the petrodollar, will no longer be in control. Also, in relation to the petrodollar, it is also called fiat currency. Now, many are not aware of what fiat is or what it means, but it is a currency that really has no backing. So its only backing is its belief, its faith, and trust in the ability to use it for trade. So for example, we work in our daily jobs every day. We receive US dollars in form of a paycheck. We go cash that check and we get US dollars. And US dollars, again, is a promissory note, a promise to pay. So if it is a promise to pay, have we been paid? No, we have never been paid. It is just you're holding on to a debt instrument that says somebody owes you something. But because we have faith in a debt instrument, it is utilized to obtain the necessities of life. Well, it's still based on debt. That's why we have the credit industry the way that it is also, which is again based on debt. You receive the amount of credit based on your debt ratio. That means how much debt you can carry. That's what the financial institutions analyze when they issue a form of credit to you, is your ability to carry debt. How ironic. Well, we're asking our people to put down the debt note and pick up the love note, which is backed by the covenant of the Almighty, which is based upon love, not a debt, not a promise to pay, but based upon our inheritance that the Almighty made in covenant with the nation of Israel. So join our movement, go to our website, go to www.yahwehgather.us, go to Kingdom Over Everything, and you can get in alignment to receive your love note. And let's put down the debt note. Why do we subscribe to be in debt when we can subscribe to be in love with the Most High and in love with our people?
Yeah, that's powerful. Just even that comparison of debt versus love. I mean, debt can't buy you anything, hence the reason why we're in the state we're in now. But love can get you everything. And just 1 ounce of love could shake the whole realm. So we definitely want to give a big shout out and thank you to our featured sponsors, the United Nation of Yisrael. Make sure you visit www.yahwehgather.us. You can receive your love notes there. You can also register in our nation and apply for your national ID. And you can also visit www.daweedyisrael.com or Kingdom Over Everything and receive your love notes. Free love notes in the mail. We're really going to change the realm with this, and we're going to do it backed by the Most High's love.
Hallelujah. And just so our people, our listeners know, we all have the love note. Let's get an ounce of love and let's show love. Love over everything.
Yes, this was an amazing conversation that we had, Elder Shemaiah had, along with Daweed, as well as the founder of New Breed Global Truth, discussing how we're moving into this new realm for our people, how we're joining our nation together with the love of the Most High, instead of debt, instead of hate, instead of anger, instead of all these things that have held our people down for so many decades, so many years. We're coming together under the faith of the Most High and moving forward in righteousness and love. And so we're definitely going to shake the room with this for sure. Make sure you visit yahwehgather.us or Kingdom Over Everything to receive your love notes. So moving past, I would love to welcome another special guest, the founder of the Almighty's House of Ibria, Jetea Yahuda Yisrael, to discuss what's going on politically. What's up with the Supreme Court nominee, Ketanji Brown Jackson?
Yeah, so just recently in the news, just to define Ketanji Brown Jackson's background, she has the Babylonian honor of being a federal judge on the U.S. State Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit, and she is also U.S. President Joe Biden's Supreme Court nominee. So at her confirmation hearing, Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn, she was asking her to define if she could define what a woman was. And Ketanji Brown Jackson could not do that. She said she was not a biologist, so she could not provide that answer. And there's a lot of issues with this. It's a big problem, but I do understand why she said that. She gave a very safe answer. She was damned if she did, and she was damned if she didn't. If she did answer what a woman was by definition, which is very easy to answer, she holds her whole backing and the transgender people and all the people that also want to blur what womanhood is right now. She would have gotten heat from them. If she didn't, she's now getting heat from those that are more so pro-life and pro-woman. So here's some problems with her not defining what it is. This is, again, another attack on womanhood, because if she can't define what a woman is, it leaves a lot of room to be blurred. And I'm a woman. I know what a woman is. I've been a woman all my life, so it's pretty easy to define what a woman is. And it is pivotal to define what a woman is, because if you don't, we now have a lack of protection, and those who aren't biologically women start to be our spokespeople and blur what it even means to be a woman. I do agree that womanhood is more than just having a uterus and a womb, but I believe that is the foundation of womanhood, and that's what she should have said. But like I said, I understand why she played it safe, because she's in the Babylonian courts, and sometimes you got to tap dance. But just the definition of being a woman, it is an adult female human being. And if we want to go deeper into female, it is of or denoting of the sex that can bear eggs or produce offspring. And again, that's really it. So we know what that is. And we know that if you aren't doing those things, or if you have male genitalia, then you are not a woman. But again, womanhood is defined on more than just having a uterus and a womb, but that is the basis and the origin of being a woman. You cannot be a woman without having that base for being a woman, because I don't know about you, Deja, but that defines everything and how I move and everything that I do.
It definitely does. And it's very, what's the word? startling and disturbing the fact that a woman could not provide a definition. Like you said, I think was very powerful. You've been a woman all your life. You know what a woman is. You know what being a woman means. And I'm sure Delia can speak to this as well, being another woman on this discussion with us. It's not hard to define what a woman is, being a woman. I mean, is that hard to do?
Absolutely not. But like Jatea was saying, she gave a PC answer. She gave a safe answer. And, you know, when you're trying to work in their system, you have to play by the rules.
That's valid. She just have to play by the rules. But like Jatea was saying as well, this is another attack on our womanhood. We've been looking at these attacks all evening with Jada Pinkett Smith, with the trans woman in Ukraine not wanting to be stuck in Ukraine because she doesn't feel like she should be stuck because she's not a man who needs to fight in their war. In Atlanta, the season premiere, the gay white lesbian couple raising our children. And the true story, they died. It wasn't a happy ending. It was a happy ending on Atlanta. There was no happy ending in the real story. These are all attacks on womanhood. And so for a Black woman to sit up there and say she doesn't know how to define woman, she's not a scientist. Even the scientists are saying there's so much variance with women, we can't define it. Y'all aren't saying this about males, though. You can define what a male is. You can define that. Why can't you define what a woman is? If you can't define what a woman is, who is bearing the children?
Preach.
Where did y'all's kids come from? Where did they come from? How is this happening? So I really think everyone needs to stop the cap, because this is such an attack on our womanhood. They're punishing women for standing up for womanhood. I think Adele received heat for saying she was a woman. How is a woman being punished for describing what she is? Now we're getting in a dangerous game. And that's exactly why we're raising these issues. I think even continuing on with this topic, what's going on in the sports world? It's more chaos in the sports world, right?
For sure. So the reason why Senator Marsha Blackburn even asked Ketanji that question was regarding Leah Thomas and how he is a transgender. I don't know what the it is a transgender woman. The T is a transgender woman that just received first division NCAA Division I title, competing against women. But when he was a man, he was in the 400s for his title. So that's why she got a little bit of heat. But I really don't know what's going on with this. And I think this is another attack on womanhood, because it's not fair that women have competed, went through periods to compete. I know when I was running track, I had to push through being a woman to compete, and someone that can just come in that doesn't even have these ailments and certain limitations, they can just come in and kind of dominate. It's not fair to anyone, but especially to the women.
It's not fair at all. And I think even the spokesperson for the LGBTQIA plus YZ community, Caitlyn Jenner, said it wasn't fair. And originally, as Bruce Jenner, he was an Olympic athlete. He understands that gives you an advantage. How could the NCAA allow such a travesty to occur for the young women that have been training for all this time, and their families come and everyone's support to see them compete in such a wonderful competition, and they lose to a man? You think we're going to let that slide? I don't care about the semantics and, oh, you have to be. No, y'all have to stop allowing lies to trump the truth. That is a young man who competed against women and beat them. Obviously, he won.
Exactly.
No one should be praising him for that.
Exactly. Biologically, it was no competition.
None. I mean, Delia, how do you feel about this? Like, these attacks are just, it's just more attacks that just keep being thrown like darts. Like, I mean, what do you have to say about this?
Yeah, I mean, just looking at that first picture, he's literally a head and shoulders above like the competitor. That's ridiculous. There's no way the other ladies would have won against him. He should not have been in that competition.
For sure.
Not at all. So, me speaking from the Kingdom magazine, Kingdom Over Everything, United Nations of Israel, shame on NCAA, period. That's how I'm going to end it. Shame on them. So moving on, like, this whole episode has been discussing the attack on womanhood. And that's why we brought Jatea on to discuss these things. So please share with us some more. The gentrification of the original woman.
Yeah, so recently it hit the news. I don't know if anyone's seen this debauchery of a television show called Jocelyn's Cabaret of Las Vegas. Um it hit the news because a lot of the members of this show decided to sue Jocelyn because she attacked them. And they wanted to say that Jocelyn's Cabaret was founded on women's empowerment and supporting women. And if you have not seen Jocelyn's Cabaret, it's exactly what it sounds like. If you notice, Jocelyn was on Love and Hip Hop, one of those reality TV shows, and she was never the epitome of women's empowerment on that show. So I don't know how this translated. You can kind of even see on this thumbnail, she's pimping these girls out, and that's exactly what she said she wanted to do. So I don't understand how that equates to women's empowerment. However, this is again another attack on womanhood because she's sitting there exploiting not only women but Black women, the original women, the mothers of an eternal nation. Shout out to Elder Catriel. She's she's exploiting these women and promoting this promiscuous Jezebel caricature. And I think it's very important for us as Black women, us as the women of Nation of Israel, to take back the imaging, because this isn't the only show that's like this. There are many other depictions in hip hop entertainment, really in those too, honestly, that our women are taking on this slavery originized, is that a word? It's going to be a word today. Slavery originized caricature that's a Jezebel. And if you don't know what the Jezebel caricature is, it's a lady of promiscuity. She has an insatiable sexual appetite. And she's pretty much the epitome of whoredom. And I need for us to reclaim this image because it's very harmful what this image does, especially when, if we weigh out the balances, we have more of these images than we have of righteous woman images. Georgetown Law, the Center of Poverty and Equality, they did a study on, because of these images, the perception of Black women and girls, we need less nurturing. We are perceived to need less protection. We are perceived to be supported less, that we know more about adult topics. And this leaves us in a bad area to be abused, misused, mistreated, and it just kind of gets swept under the rug because, hey, this is a woman that's presenting herself as this Jezebel caricature, and she obviously doesn't need to be protected. Look at her. Like, look at what she's doing. She obviously isn't a woman of honor. This leaves us in a bad image, and it really puts us in a bad spot. And it's sad because I get why it kind of happens. I mean, if we're walking like a duck, talking like a duck, quacking like a duck, yada yada, then you're gonna perceive that it is a duck. And I know a lot of the girls that go out here, and I know Megan Thee Stallion's another proponent of this, Cardi B, even Beyonce herself, like all of these women are presenting this Jezebel, loose, promiscuous, overly sexualized caricature. It leaves our men in turn to start treating us like this whore. Something's got to change. And so then for her to say that this show was based on women's empowerment, and again, if you've seen this show, there's nothing empowering about this. I think it leaves, and that's a lot of the time for these shows, they like to say that this is women's empowerment, this is women's support, yada yada yada. I think it's now time for us to define all these things. We already defined what a woman was: an adult female human being. Female, you have an egg and womb. Power, possession of control, authority, or influence. A supernatural being, deity, or force. Empowerment, the state of being empowered to do something, the right or the authority to do something. And then I also want to go on the flip side and define slavery: submission to a dominating influence. In Daughters of Zion, we see this dominating influence, this Jezebel caricature that is rooted in slavery, that is rooted in our oppressor's image of us. We see this promoted everywhere. We are the victims of being exploited and entrapped by this caricature. And so I think we also need to define freedom, which is the absence of subjection to foreign domination or despotic government. To have real empowerment, we have to free ourselves from the slavery of these images. We have to start walking in who we really want to be. I know a lot of our women, they may look like this, but they don't want that for themselves. They don't want their men treating them like whores. They don't, because they're crying all day on Justin LeBoy and what's that other page? Y'all know what I'm talking about. They cry all day on this of how they want a man to treat them a certain way. Well, baby, we have to promote a different image and walk in a different persona to get the results that we want. Because right now, our men and everyone else, apparently white men, and it's not even us that control these platforms, our oppressor as well as ourselves, we keep promoting this image that is not getting us the results that we need. It's not. I think it's time to take back our image, to start walking in our culture, because if we don't, we're committing genocide against our nation. We're still perpetuating slavery and what our oppressors want against our nation, against our men. And ultimately, if you destroy the woman, you have destroyed a big piece of our nation. So I think it's time to transition into that powerful Ivrea, that powerful woman of Yah, that powerful daughter of Zion that we were intended to be. Whoredom was never our culture. Don't take on someone else's culture. Let that be for your oppressor. That's what they do.
Yeah, that's yes to everything you just said. Yes, because these shows and these characters that they're pushing into the realm, we're taking that on and then we're pushing it out into the reality, and then it becomes real. Y'all took something that was fake from a Black Mirror. Y'all took something that was fake, you put it on, and you pushed it out into the reality, and now that's what we see. And you wonder why these men don't treat you right. You wonder why the men looking like, why are all the girls hoes? Why is there no women of substance anymore? And so then the men are hoes. So it's like and then you get this tornado of whoredom, and you're breaking up the family. I mean, the attack on womanhood is an attack on the Israelite family. That's what this is. This is an attack on the entire family, because what would you do if your mom was out here doing these things? I mean, who's holding your house down? Mm-hmm. Who's keeping it together? Who's raising the kids? Who's left to do that? So then you have kids growing up way too fast, just copying what they've been seeing. I mean, we see it happen, and then they just keep doing it over and over and over again. And it seems like every generation becomes much worse than the last.
For sure.
Much worse. I mean, Delia and Elder Shemaiah as well. How do you feel about how they're painting our women to be in society, on reality TV, in music, in these shows? The way they're painting our women, like, what does that do to our nation?
Wow. Well, I'm gonna let my sister go first, and then I'll chime in.
I would just say, it's disturbing, it's disgusting, it's disappointing, it's just a bunch of nonsense. But unfortunately, there are people out here that are raised by television. As you heard from the statistics that I read earlier, there are a lot of our people that are disproportionately represented in, the system, and they're being bounced around from household to household. But who's raising them if they're never there long enough to build bonds, and they're always being shuttled from one house to the next? A lot of them turn to TV and they look for people that look like them. And then you see this nonsense, because that's what's mostly up there. And it is destroying our communities. And we have to, meet that with the opposite, which is who we really are, and walk in our nobility, so that our children out here can learn how to properly represent themselves.
Absolutely. Every nation, every landmass, every culture, in order for a particular nation to continue, you need the female and the male. And if you start to take away the power or the essence of our women, then you cripple, as our sister Zataya said, a big portion of the nation. A lot of times we look at the masculinity as the main function, but it takes both the masculine portion and the feminine portion to make a whole. You need both to make children. The Almighty made it that way. A man can't have children by himself, and a woman can't have children by herself. It takes two. So as we see the degrading of our sisters, we as men also have a responsibility to also call that out. We all take a part of what we allow. And if we take accountability and play our role appropriately as being children of the Almighty according to Torah, according to what guides us as a people, then we would be supporting our sisters in every aspect. we spend a lot of time at pointing the finger, and yes, we can point the finger at men and women on a lot of issues. But let's now take the time and after the pointing of the finger occurs, let's start to help in the correction and the redirection of our men and our sisters. And as we're talking about in this second segment, our sisters, my brothers, let's help our sisters. Show that we love our sisters. If you love your mother, if you love your flesh and blood sisters, you should love all women of your people. And you should not stand for the degrading of our sisters on any level. You know, I can speak from experience, and a lot of times our sisters have carried the baton when our brothers have lacked. You know, I'm gonna call an apple and call it what it is. We got to deal with the hard truths if we're going to make change. If we're going to stand and be the men of the Almighty, then we need to support and uplift our sisters and stop the degrading of our sisters on all levels. That means we should not allow them to degrade themselves, and we should not perpetuate that same degrading. Unfortunately, we're fed by the media, whether it be TV influence, social media, radio. You know, we're fed a constant diet of music and entertainment that has guided the mindset of our people, that has painted the paradigm of what we need to exist. And those that are in control of the industry, again, we can relate this to anti-Semitism. They control the industry. And who do they exploit the most but our people? If you see anybody degraded in videos, most of the time, it's our women. You don't see Caucasian women or any other woman out there in rap videos or music videos or being exploited on a sexual nature other than our women. We have to ask ourselves the question, why is that? So it's time for us to take a stand. It's time for us to take our place. And more importantly, you know, we got to stop buying into these things. We got to remove ourselves from that kind of culture and that kind of paradigm, as our sister Zate had mentioned. So as a man, as a brother, you know, I support my sisters 100% and will not stand to see our sisters continue to be diminished on the screen or on the radio.
Yeah. And we need more brothers willing to take a stand for us in that way. A lot of men aren't. And like you said, they support the depiction that is out here, that our oppressors have painted us to be, that we have taken on. And so, speaking to what Jatea said as well, it is time for that correction. How do we empower ourselves? How do we correct ourselves? I mean, I've been corrected. All the women that we're speaking to tonight, we've all been corrected in order to be in this place, the place that we're in today. And so, Jatea, I'd love to find out more about how you're tackling this issue in our community. What is the Almighty's House of Ibria? How is that solving this issue of the lack of empowerment our women have?
I think it's good for us, or it's actually great for us to look at our history pre-transatlantic slave Holocaust, because then we can kind of see who we were as a people, who we are as a nation, what was our culture. So we have to look at that. And the way we can look at that is by going to the good and faithful scripture. We have got to look back at scripture to see who we were, not who people made us out to be. One of the best examples of what a righteous woman should stand like right now is the proverbial woman of Proverbs 31. She was righteous, she was willing, she was nurturing, she was kind, she was modest, she was covered, she was a Yah-fearing, she's a daughter of Zion. So we have to go back to scripture and align ourselves not only with our laws, not only with the things that governed us to have the brightest light that we could have, but also getting back in order so that, again, we can be building up our nation, because it really does start with us. So AHOI was created, or the Almighty's House of Ivrea was created to restore our women back into their power, not only to restore them, but to restore sisterhood, and then to restore their community. Because again, it takes us, while our men were out at war, it was the women that binders of the community. We have to get back into our nail in the tent position. We have to come back together and gather together with our people and realize our nobility and our royalty. So that was pretty much what AHOI was founded off of. We agree on community service, sisterhood, creator, and we strive to not only change ourselves and edify ourselves, but then in turn, once we edify ourselves in our community, to go ahead and edify everyone else, including the whole world.
This is powerful, and this is definitely needed in the realm. Like you said, we've seen all these examples, not just tonight, but all the time. We see all these examples of our dejected state, our degenerate state. Now it's time for us to see us in an elevated state, an empowered state, a righteous state, a virtuous state, the state that the Most High created us to be in, that sadly we've fallen away from, but we're getting back to it. And the Almighty's house of Ibria is the perfect way to do so. I'm so excited about all that we have coming regarding our organization, what this means for our women. It's definitely going to be a community that's going to foster sisterhood, foster community building, because what are we without our community? Foster economic development and wealth circulation, because we do need to circulate our funds with our own communities. Everybody else does that except us. Why do we have the most purchasing power and we're the most impoverished? Make it make sense. We have to keep it in our family. So this is really important stuff, really powerful stuff. I'm so grateful that this is on the forefront and that we're moving towards a more righteous state of mind, not just for our women, but for our whole nation in totality.
I agree. And for any women or girls, mother, elders, we are trying to bridge the gaps between our full sisterhood of women. We cannot do it without our elders. They hold the wisdom. And you as a woman, you also hold a lot of wisdom as well. For any woman or Ivrea that wants to come back to her true form, wants to come back to her community, has a mission and a goal to empower not only herself, but her people, please join the Almighty's House.life. Again, we are a sisterhood founded on community, creator, and sisterhood. We are reestablishing our virtuous sisterhood and reclaiming who we are back in this realm. It is time for us to stand up. Stand up! I know y'all see that TikTok. It is time for us to stand up and really come back to the Almighty and run with full force. It is time for the lionesses to hunt. So let's get it. Period.
Let's get it. Period. You heard her. Well, I thank you so much, everyone that joined us tonight. Delia, Jatea, Elder Shemaiah, thank you so much for the wise words, the education, the input, the edification. I'm truly loving where we're taking this, and I'm grateful to the Most High that we have this platform, that we're able to discuss these real issues that have plagued our community and offer real life solutions about how we can move past and elevate and continue to move forward. So I thank you all. Shalom to everyone. I pray that everyone has a good night. Stay blessed, stay safe, and we'll see you next time.
Hallelujah.
Shalom.